So apologies for that minor technical break. It's Christmas time and the lines are overloaded. That's what we'll say. So we're back live and out. I presume Tamara will give me a nod to say that we're back. We're okay. Fine. So
last question.
Last question. Well, two more. So the Somerset Nationals, 2nd of January.
Yes,
underway.
really pleased. Clearly pleased with the relationship with Somerset, so I should do that up front. But really pleased with the numbers. So this is the reference point that we're taking, is that last year we had 540 people take part in nationals down in Dunedin. The singles pairs this year, the field is sitting at 500, and we've still got the fours to come in March. So this little experiment of splitting nationals with a view to creating more numbers, appears on the balance to work really well. Our numbers will be significantly up on previous nationals. Now, I respect the fact that Auckland and Wellington is not Dunedin, and geographically there are limitations, but already singles and pairs entries, the singles entries is the highest it's been since 2010. Which is great for our sport.
I think the whole if you take the whole concept of what we're trying to get to, Mark, is we're talking about 2nd to the 8th of January, in out finished. So everyone's got their Christmas sort of break with family and friends or whatever. They can get to Auckland on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day and start their play on the 2nd of January, and of course they're only having virtually a week.
Do you think there's a whole lot of bowls partners and families going, what do you mean you're here between Christmas and New Year's?
Well, that was always a debate in the old days, of course, and that's when men's and women's were played separately. But it's like anything new. It will take a wee bit of time for everybody to grab into it, and we know from our earlier discussions there's been a bit of but as we've found throughout the year, as these changes have evolved, the negativity of these things becomes more minimalistic.
I don't think we've got it right yet. I think we need to review it. But the experiment of splitting into two events effectively, from a numbers perspective, has and will work. I think there's still a debate as to what should go with which. So should singles be with fours? Should pairs be with fours? Etc. I think there's that debate to come. But for now, we made a call, singles, pairs together and fours separate. Let's see how it goes this year and possibly next year, and then sit back and review it. But the idea of growing numbers at nationals by having it in two areas of the country, that was our initial objective, and it appears to have worked really well in terms of numbers.
Well, I think as well, the other thing, if we, especially singles and pairs for a number of players out there, here's your opportunity. We're going to talk shortly about the high performance program. But here's an opportunity for players to put their hand up. This is an event where you can put your hand up and say, "Here I am. Look at me. Give me an opportunity." So that's a plus. And for example, we saw with the Bowls 3-5, we saw some players coming through who perhaps we didn't know a lot about.
Who you're going to be told off for banging on the table soon.
That's right. We've had that debate too, haven't we? Here comes Erin, you can tell me off now, actually. But we saw with the Bowls 3-5, some players come through who weren't really that well known, but they became household names, didn't they?
Yep. It's an opportunity for players to step up on the national scene and see how really good they are. I mean, I know because I'm currently 9th on the waiting list for the peers. So I'm looking forward to my opportunity. Won't be this year from the sounds of things because I'm still only on the waiting list, but of stepping up and playing in these competitions, and I think that's great. I mean, there's not many competitions that you can take part in nationals, play against the best in the world on any given day. Normally you have to go through qualifying, and nationals is a closed event almost. This is open.
Well, that's what Jenny Woods is an example. When Tamara and I had a chat with Jenny Woods on with the Bowls 3-5, and that was one of the things that really stuck out to her of how bowls does give you the opportunity to play the best, in an event. So,
no matter how young, how old
all we can say to everyone out there, we look. Also, of course, if everyone out there watching now, we'll be live streaming, of course, from the 2nd of January,
Yes.
right through to the 8th.
Thank you.
We'll be carrying the Somerset Nationals. The first couple of days, it will be in a different format until things. We won't be featuring that many games on the first couple of days, but it's fair to say that there'll be updates right throughout the day, round by round updates, etc. And of course, it'll also be on Radio Sport, Radio Live, and Trackside Radio, where we'll be we'll be giving updates and coverage as well.
You will be busy then, won't you?
We'll be busy, and then of course, once we get into post-section pay, we'll be non-stop live streaming, so that all the bowlers at home, sitting at the camping ground or wherever you might be, who have said for a long time bowls doesn't get enough coverage. Well, from the 2nd to the 8th of January, the Somerset Nationals, singles and pairs, is certainly going to get wall-to-wall coverage.
We're going to have to create a byline, aren't we? We're going to have the Somerset Nationals brought to you by Kevin and Tamara.
Yeah, well, we can.
Yeah. We'll create that on the little
now, before we can see Kojak, he's ready. He's all said to jump in here. But we've just had the decisions of Sport New Zealand relative to funding,
yes.
And
yes.
which is a big part of
yep.
the sport. So
I thought Koshak will pick up the more interesting parts, but I thought I'd cover off the funding discussion just to make it clear. So our funding dropped from $250,000 to $200,000 a year. We understand why. And it was based around our performance. So we targeted, we put on paper that we would collect 4 to 5 medals at the Commonwealth Games. We ended up with 2, thanks to Joe and the Para Triple boys. So we had a cut in our funding. It's over to us now to step back up and rebuild our program. And Coach is going to talk a lot about that with a view to the 2020 World Champs and meddling well there. So it's a reality of sport nowadays, and high performance sport, that if you don't cut it, there are consequences.
they cut you.
They cut you,
Yeah.
and we can sit here and moan and groan about it.
Well, you and I can sit and have an hour's debate about the pros and cons, etc.
Doesn't change anything.
Doesn't change anything whatsoever.
Yep.
All that really changes is, I think, and which Kojak is going to talk about, is now I see as an exciting opportunity to reignite our high performance program and go forward in a positive environment, so that come 2020 we are going to be a dominant force at the World Champs at Broad Beach.
And 2022, 2024. So we've got a lot of young talent, and I don't just mean young in age, but new bowlers coming through that we need to develop. We've got an exceptional crop of blackjacks at the top end of the game, but we need to develop best in the world. But we need to develop some of these ones underneath, and that's going to be the emphasis of our high performance program going forward. Is how do we develop these younger ones so that they are ready for the international stage? Now, realistically, not a lot of them are ready for 2020, but 2022, 2024, we need to be in a good space. So
certainly do.
Yep.
So. Thank you, Mark, and no doubt I'll be seeing.
Merry Christmas!
And Merry Christmas to you, man. Thank you
for everybody else.
Right, and we'll now get Kojak in here, and we'll get into the high performance program. And I can tell you that there has been a significant amount of work going on the whole high performance program. After the Commonwealth Games, there's been a lot of work gone into the revamping or restructuring of the high performance program, and Kojak Patel, who is the man here at Bowls New Zealand who is in charge of that, is going to drive it, and we're just about at the point now where some announcements are close to being made. So, Kojak, first time you've been here?
Absolutely, Kevin, an absolute pleasure.
Good to have you here.
Good. I bought you a present.
Oh, you did. Thank you for the water. Right. So, the Commonwealth Games, finished in 2018, and the high performance program from finishing to now, it's been pretty dominant on your agenda, hasn't it?
Dominant? I thought you were going to say dormant. It certainly hasn't been dormant. Me and Mark haven't been playing golf for the last 6 months,
No.
I can promise you that. So as soon as that finished, there was a debrief process. And it wasn't a simple process. It took about a good 4 to 6 weeks. We interviewed all the players, all the staff. There was a hell of a lot of soul-searching going on. And it got quite emotional at most of the times as well.
But
So
it was needed.
definitely needed. And I heard you say earlier, it wasn't great, two medals, but we can't go past them like that. Look, 8 out of the 10 disciplines qualified for the quarterfinals, and that's dominant.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and those 8, 6 of those finished top of the groups. So we know at pool play we did well. We also know quarterfinals we dropped out.
Well, it's now that we've got to just make sure that we have got a program in place which is going to take us past that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's the whole. That's the key thing, isn't it?
And the review process isn't just a piece of paper; it's an 86-page document. The reality is, from the review, we then put into place what do we need to do better, and the new plan came into place there.
So, do we have a plan? Yes,
we do.
have
Just
a plan.
before I go on the plan, there was a Facebook question earlier about the results of the review. I think that's important.
Yes.
People need to know, and we need to be transparent. And from those, the key things were mental application, obviously, quarterfinals, critical moments. Why did we lose? So that is a mental side of the game that we definitely need to work on. That was one of the key ones there. Performance culture required. We've got a lovely, happy team. We need to be a performance culture. So that's an area that we'll certainly be working on. Campaign plan, Mark mentioned earlier. We get funding from High Performance Sport New Zealand to win medals. So what we have been doing is preparing to win medals at events. What we haven't been doing is developing players. We need to work with these players. We haven't had the resource, the time, the coaching to be able to do that. So that's certainly one area that we were looking to do.
In saying that, Kojak, that we know that we have got players of international standing, as we proved both in 2008 and 2016, the World Championships. And let's take New Zealand Australian analogy, I suppose. It's about us becoming that strong, dominant. I'm not going to use the word arrogant, but it's just that next step that culture has to be at, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. And we keep hearing saying that's what New Zealanders are like. No, we're not like that. We want to win, not win at all costs, but we've got to have that mongrel to win as well. So you're absolutely right there.
And that's something that comes about as well with performances, success, and a whole raft of things.
Yep.
I just remarked to Mark as an example, like watching the Australian-Indian Test match. No disrespect to the New Zealand side at the moment against Sri Lanka, but there is certainly a difference.
It's a different level, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I've been saying the same thing to my friends. The intensity level in that game is just unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's what we're really talking about for our players at that top level, isn't it?
Any sport, really.
Yeah, it is.
If you want to be the best in the world,
yeah,
that's
it's
exactly
so apparent that right now I'm watching the cricket.
Absolutely.
So the plan, it's done, all set to go, ticked off. And what do you like about the plan?
Yeah. So look, the plan we started the process in June, and me and Mark sat down and we had a blank piece of paper, and we produced 4 versions ourselves. The first 4 versions from 1 to 4, which was fairly blank and some basic stuff in there. We then went to consult with a group of people. We went to 100 plus bowlers. That's bowling coaches, players, administrators. We took the plan out there. What are your thoughts? We also met with other sports organisations. We met with the Crusaders, New Zealand Cricket. How do you guys do things? We met with a number of those.
I think, just to interrupt you there, I think this, to the best of my knowledge, is possibly the first time when we may have looked so far in depth to what other sports do to succeed.
We shouldn't be embarrassed about that because a lot of other sports are. I used to be involved in cricket, and cricket was exactly the same. What can we learn of everybody else? And it's only when you start going wider, spreading that scope, that you realise, well, we can learn a lot.
It might only just be one small thing you pick up from one organisation and another small thing from another organisation, and it makes a big difference. Can make a big difference, can't it?
Too right. So we did a lot of soul searching. Version 17 was the finished product. So you can imagine how many times we've just changed, tinkered things. And that's not me and Mark. That's the people out there, the coaches, the players, the bowling fraternity. So that was really, really satisfying.
So do you feel now that we have got a plan? And and I'll be critical in saying this in the past, that we've more than likely had a year by year, virtually year by year, event to event plan. But are you confident now that we've got a plan that is there? It's got succession planning that it's there.
It's on paper, but you're absolutely right. We are not preparing just for one campaign. We are talking long term here. You ask the question, what do I like about it? It's very simple. I don't know if you've had the chance to look at it, the mission couldn't be more simpler. The right people.
I've had a look at some things this morning in Mark's office.
Good. The right people work with the right talent in the right environment.
Yeah, it's
And as simple as it, we probably haven't done that as well as we could have.
Yes.
So.
And I think the other very good thing about knowing a wee bit about what went on in the review is, and the format of what's been put together. So all you bowlers out there watching, listening, whatever, know that I can assure you that there has been a tremendous amount of soul searching go on. There has been a lot of input, and I suppose you could say everything's been put on the table, and we're now virtually starting with a clean sheet of paper. Is that
absolutely right? And the other thing you got to remember there, Kevin, you're absolutely right. Clean sheet of paper, but the people that have been involved, we're not throwing them under the bus. We've got some quality people in the program. It's really the structure around them. We've got to get that right, and that's the environment that we're talking about.
So, has there been a change in the coaches and selectors as a result of the Commonwealth Games and the review?
I'll probably answer your question there. So, look, there hasn't been a change, massive change. There's been a massive change in the way we do the structure. The people that are involved will continue to be involved. There's new people involved. I'm not sure if you know, but we can't give you the names of the new coaches just yet. There's a bit of paperwork to get through, so we'll be able to announce that by the end of the week. We have made a major change. It used to happen, I'm sure, in bowls. You'll be able to tell me. But now this selection has been separated from the coaches.
Yes, it always was, and I'm not saying it was always right, but it's needed.
Yeah.
And it's the old story. I think you can have good selectors that aren't good coaches, and you can have good coaches who aren't good selectors.
Correct.
So it's important.
Yeah, it also takes the pressure off the coach to be able to be open and transparent with the player, because the player can't be as transparent when they know that they're talking to the coach who's also a selector. So I think that's a real big change here.
So it's fair to say we're going to see some new faces, new selectors.
Yep, I can tell you the selection panel. I can tell you that with great pleasure. So the selection panel, the new national selection team will be Felix Scotland Jr., Marlene Castle, who I think you might know, and Peter Bellis. That will be the selection team.
Well, the great thing about that selection panel is that we've got 3 ex-players who have played at the highest level for a lengthy period of time and have been avid followers of the sport. And I think it's great to see that those international players are now, especially in the case of Philip and Marlene, who are now putting something back into the sport. And they still know, obviously, they go to a lot of events, they know what's going on, and I think that, I endorse, well, not
not personally.
But I think that's a big step forward, and I'm sure that the panel of Philip Scogland, Marlene Castle, and Peter Bellis will certainly do a wonderful job as our new selection panel, which has just been officially announced.
Absolutely. Great.
So congratulations to them, and we wish them, of course, all the best as we build toward the World Champs in 2020. And next year, of course, the first big event is Asia Pacific in June. Is that correct?
June, we got the Asia Pacifics. We got the World Indoor Cup singles that were in March as well.
And the Trans-Tasman in
November next year, with a multi-nations event just before that. So there's a bit of it.
There's a bit on, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the coaches, they will be announced later on in the week, so to speak.
Friday at the latest, we'll make a proper announcement, yes.
Of the coaches. And then...
So it'll be it's a coaching team of 7 high-performance coaches, and there'll be 1 head coach.
So with having these new selectors and the new coaching regime and structure, and we've got the Nationals just about to start, I would imagine there's going to be a bit of collective minds over the next couple of weeks, is there?
Correctly. I'm not sure if that's one of your questions, but who's going to, how are they going to do the selection, where they're going to do the selection? and how we're going to develop world-class coaches, because that's one thing we haven't mentioned. We've certainly got the cattle there, but we have done very little as a sport to actually develop our coaches, and that's the next stage. We want to develop these coaches, and it will be. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, we're talking about a 2 to 4 year plan to develop
which is great.
world-class
Which
coaches.
is good.
And so the selection team will be present at the Nationals in January from the 2nd to the 8th. Towards the end of that, the new coaching team will be coming along, and we'll have a big forum with the selection team and the coaching team.
And then from there, that goes on to our next part, regarding that of the talent identification and player selection. So how are we going to identify these players, and what's the process? And
Cool. I can tell you, it's not going to be me. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be Mark Cameron that selects these players. We've got a selection team there. They will not be working alone. The coaching team will have their input on what their thoughts are. In the past, it's been a bit of subjectivity. It's going to be very objective. We have created templates, and that's not me and Mark. We've put templates out there for the coaches to work with, for the selectors to work with, and saying, look, where are we selecting these players on? And these templates will be used both by the selectors and the coaching team to actually select the players.
so it's right to say from that we're building up a base now for like as Mark and I said, the Somerset Nationals, the case in point, is a great place for the young, or not younger players, but for players with promise and potential to really put their hands up. Now what we got now is we're going to have a base whereby the selectors can consistently, alongside the coaches, but monitor these talent ID players, whether they're in Invercargill or they're in Kaikoui, so to speak, isn't it? They'll be.
That's the whole idea of the plan. It's not just 1 or 2 people. So you've got your 7 people in the coaching team. You've got your head coach. You've got your national selection team. Underneath the national selection team, they will have a group of scouts.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we'd love to have 27 scouts, one
Yeah.
from each centre,
Yeah.
who will be feeding the information in there. It's a whole collective thing.
Just to at the centres, because it's something which, and Mark and I have discussed this as well, is that it would. Is it the intention that the selectors would have some conversation, for example, with the respective centre selectors? Because let's say we got New Zealand Centre event later on in the year, and ideally, just like other codes, you want to see a certain player, for example. I'm not saying playing in a specific position, but you certainly want to be able to view them. There's a great opportunity in the centre to watch the best players collectively from around New Zealand.
Isn't that the ideal scenario?
Yeah.
Where we can collaborate with each other. You're absolutely right.
Because that's something which I think has been sort of missing over the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen some, I'm not going to say talent washed away, but perhaps just...
Kevin, we can't be embarrassed. This has happened in other sports as well. There are so many quality people out there in the game of bowls as there are in cricket, soccer, rugby, that don't get utilised. We've got to utilise that talent.
Well, it's interesting. Mark and I spoke before about this. If we take the bowls 3-5 as a classic example, and I'll refer to the Point Chevalier side, where we saw 2 young guys especially, who, we knew about these 2 young players, but they certainly stepped up to another level, didn't they? And these are the sort of players now that you want to make sure that they're, and not for us to say who should be in the Auckland side, but it's the ideal opportunity now to, from what they excelled and showed in that particular event, and I see they've just got through to the semi-final of the Auckland Peers as well, where you can work them through now into, this is what makes it work, doesn't it?
Absolutely right. I was ready to jump in there because they're not new players. The reality is they have been in our development team. So we've got Evan Roberts, we've got Graham Reese, who've been working with the development players for the last 3 to 4 years. Aidan Takarua has been a key part of that. All those young players are part of a program already. And
the only part that I think has been missing
Yeah.
is that then back to this with the centre part. To get
That's
that.
the part that we've been missing. Yes, they work with these players when they're at an event or just before an event. It's how do we keep developing these
and
players
that's
throughout
the important point. And I think that this plan obviously addresses that very much so, doesn't it?
I just want to take you back on the point that you mentioned earlier. It's not just young players. We're not talking young age.
No.
We are talking development players that could be 40, 50 years old.
Well, if we go back to the Bowls New Zealand Awards event, we
right.
saw Leanne Polson from Counties Manukau, who
Don't say her age.
No, I'm certainly not. No, I'm certainly not going to. But there's a player as an example who doesn't fit into the under 25 category, we'll say. But she won the award this year and did exceptionally well. Of course, part of the winning four side at the Australian Open. So
Absolutely correct. And look, Australia, they've got numbers. They've got tons more players than us. They can afford to have an under 18 program and under 21. We haven't got the resource to do that. So do we really need an under 18 program? The development team's a perfect tool for us.
Yeah, correct, and I do think as well, accommodating that as well, there is a number of events, like let's say the Burnside under 26s, we've now got later on the year the under 23 event.
Correct.
We've got the New Zealand Secondary School Championships. So there is ample events here in New Zealand for these players to really be exposed and be recognised, isn't it?
Absolutely right. So one thing that we haven't covered is this national selection team, along with the coaches who will have their input, will select 2 squads. They will select a high-performance squad and a talent ID squad. And you're talking numbers between 15 and 20 in each of those squads.
So they've got a bit of work to do, haven't they?
The 7 coaches then will be working with these players.
Those. So the selectors will pick that group, and then great. So we spoke about the up and coming international events. We know we've got the Asia Pacific coming up, and of course the Trans-Tasman. And look, it'd be great for this new selection and coaching panel that if we can get over there to Australia and firstly do well at the Asia Pacific, but it'd be nothing better for the men and women to win that Trans-Tasman, and it's something that especially the men, the women have done very well, but it'd be fantastic with the men if we could just get over that hurdle.
It is, to take it back, Commonwealth Games are disappointing. People forget very quickly that literally we won the Trans-Tasman Trophy the first time since 2011 last year.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
No,
In the multi-nations event, we won gold medals. So it's not all doom and gloom.
No, it's just, and as Mark has said, and you've said yourself as well, that now it's a matter of, as well as bringing that other block of players through into our, what we'd say, our succession planning for moving forward to say up to 2024. So congratulations, Kojak, on all the. And I know how much work's gone into this, and
we haven't been playing golf for 6
No,
months.
I know, I know that, and of course with the funding scenario last week, that caused a few more trials and tribulations, and let's say the principle of what wanted to be done is still the same, but it just meant some other things had to be changed around a wee bit. But now it's there, we've done it, and so can I ask, so you're going to be the person who's going to drive this new program. Is that the plan, is it?
I'm not a bowler. I have very little bowls knowledge. I do not understand high performance. We have got fantastic people with that bowls knowledge. My role is to drive these people together to work the plan that we've got, the plan that we've created alongside those coaches.
And of course, I'm sure to everyone out there now, we want to have the buy-in from everybody, from club level, all the way up, because I think this high performance program, and with our announced selection panel, we're going to have a selection panel that's going to be visible, and the opportunities that are there for everybody. So it's from clubland all the way up. Let's get them behind this new high performance program, and we can go forward in a positive vein.
It's music to my ears. Okay.
So thank you very much, Kojak, and to all of our viewers out there on Facebook. Thanks, of course, to Tamara, my right-hand lady, who's done a fantastic job right throughout the whole year. So we'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of Bowls New Zealand to wish you and your families all a very, very Merry Christmas, best for the festive season, of course, and for 2019. And we look forward to seeing you at the Somerset Nationals here in Auckland. And if you're going away, and of course there's other events around the country, enjoy them, have a good time. If you travel, please just travel safe, and all the best to everyone. And we'll see you starting January the 2nd, live from the Carlton Cornwall Bowling Club here in Auckland.